decided to bless y'all with my presence again while reading this book instead of the backdrop. Don't know how long I'm going to do that. But anyway, chapter, I believe it is 8.2. I do believe. We were talking about Genesis 6, where the word Nephilim is first used. About how God told Joshua to utterly destroy the land of Canaan as far as their people go. And why would God tell someone to destroy everything? There was a special reason. So, one, because of their practices, they were Baal worshippers and they burnt their children as offerings. That in and of itself. And then, because of the giants that were there, the fallen angels have not stopped. In other words, they've just tried a different way to go about it, perhaps, and we have giants again. Because the promise that the devil got, the curse on him from God, enmity between you and the woman, about the seed. Seed, where it's first mentioned in Genesis 1:1, is the word Zorah in the Hebrew. And the other words that fill in for that are all words that have to do with implantation, growth from a seed. The DNA is in the seed. Anyhow, let me get to reading. Remember, some of these giants had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. Goliath wore a coat of armor that weighed 196 pounds. I'll pick up right here. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbath of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth, after the cubit of a man. This was a super king-size bed. In modern measurements, it was 18 feet 6 inches long and 8 feet 4 inches wide. Big old feller. All right, evidence from the Middle East. These giants were not confined to the Middle East. 24 human footprints of abnormal size have been found in the Paluxy Riverbed. That's in Texas. Some of them measuring 18 inches long. Other giant markings have been discovered in such diverse places as Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. In the Mount Vernon area of Ohio, Dr. Wilbert G. Burroughs of the Geological Division of the Berea College, Kentucky, reported finds of human footprints 23.75 centimeters long and 10.25 centimeters wide near Antelope Springs, Utah. William Meister discovered in 1968 2 human footprints 32.5 centimeters long and 11.25 centimeters wide. Similar giant footprints have been discovered in other countries, especially in the Mount Victoria region of Australia. Not only do we have footprints of giants, but actual skeletons as well. In 1936, Larsen Kohl, the German paleontologist and anthropologist, found the bones of gigantic men on the shore of Lake Ileasi in Central Africa. Other giant skeletons were later found in Java, the Transvaal, and China. The evidence for the existence of giants is incontrovertible, a scientifically assured fact, says Dr. Louis Burkhalter. Giants in knowledge. The Nephilim also were giants in knowledge. According to the book of Enoch, God was incensed against the fallen angels, partly because they disclosed certain classified information to humans. The ancient world associated demons with special knowledge and with superior intelligence. The word demon in Greek, daemon, comes from the root meaning knowledge or intelligence. The scriptures also testify to the fact that demons have access to knowledge and information denied to ordinary mortals. We read in the Gospels now how they recognized and acknowledged the deity of Christ when humans seemed totally blind to the fact. When the Gadarene demoniac saw Jesus, he fell down before him and cried out, "What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God Most High? Luke 8:28. These demons recognized Jesus at the beginning of his ministry, way ahead of his own disciples. In the book of Acts, with the same supernatural knowledge, demons recognized the mission and message of the Apostle Paul. The possessed damsel at Philippi cried, "These men are the servants of the Most High God, which shew unto us the way of salvation." Acts 16:17. I did a Bible study on that. Acts 16, find it. It's in my YouTube. This happened at a time when the people of Philippi had no idea who Paul was, nor did they know the nature of his mission. We cannot but note that every recorded statement made by demons in the New Testament concerning Christ or Paul was 100% accurate. Clement of Alexandria suggested an interesting reason for this superior knowledge of demons. It is evident, since they are demoniac spirits, that they know some things more quickly and more perfectly than men, for they are not retarded in learning by the heaviness of a body. Examples of this trait in demons are supplied by various missionary organizations. They tell us how people possessed by evil spirits acquire superior knowledge, far above that of their brethren. In an editorial, Christian Life magazine, we find these words concerning the murder of 5 young American missionaries in the jungles of Ecuador in 1956. Indians at Arawano Mission Base knew in a few hours what had happened when 5 missionaries deep in Ecuador's Auca territory in 1956 failed to make radio contact with anxiously waiting fellow missionaries. How? They asked a local witch doctor. He obliged by falling into a trance, calling up his favorite demons and asking them to tell him where the missing missionaries were. According to the friendly Indians, they heard demons leave the scene, and in a short time returned with the message that the missionaries were in the Corare River with Auca lances in them. This book was written in the 1970s for anybody that wants to have a cow about me using the word Indians. Yes, Native Americans, I know. John L. Nevius, a medical missionary in China at the end of the last century, gathered a significant compendium of data on the subject. After sending a detailed questionnaire to Protestant missionaries all over China, he gleaned a vast amount of information about the symptoms of demonism. One characteristic he found again and again was the prevalence of superior knowledge and intelligence in the possessed person, even on subject matters of which the person had no prior knowledge. Programmed from space. This may well supply the key to the great knowledge and expertise that characterized certain men in ancient times. As already seen, such knowledge and expertise by primitive men continue to defy explanation. P.J. Wiseman admits to this mysterious factor. It was expected that the more ancient the period, the more primitive excavators find it to be, until traces of civilization ceased altogether and aboriginal man appeared. Neither in Babylonia nor Egypt, the land of the oldest known habitations of man, has this been the case. Arthur Custis pertinently states that this strange sequence right at the beginning of human history, an unbelievably long time with almost no growth, a sudden spurt leading within a few centuries to a remarkably high culture, a gradual slowing up and decay, followed only much later by recovery, if lost arts, and by development of new ones, leading ultimately to the creation of our modern world. What was the agency which operated for that short period of time to so greatly accelerate the process? Making sure no snakes are creeping up. What was the agency which operated for that short period of time to so greatly accelerate the process of cultural development and produce such remarkable results? Could this agency be the Nephilim? Could this expertise have been imparted by beings from outer space? And could this explain the mysteries surrounding Stonehenge, the Mayan Caracol, Tiahuanaco, the Bay of Pisco, and particularly the Great Pyramid? Did the knowledge necessary to construct these monolith structures come from the Nephilim? Were they the ones responsible for what Costanz calls the climax at the beginning? As for the Great Pyramid, many scientists suggest a date back in generations preceding the flood. If so, those happen to be very times of the Nephilim, the generations of the giants and of the men of renown. But what if it could be proven that the Great Pyramid was not built until after the flood? There is still no problem. Could not Noah and his family have carried this information with them into the ark and transmitted it later to their descendants? According to the Babylonian version of the flood, the Chaldean Noah was made to bury his books before the flood and then disentomb them after emerging from the ark. But there is still another possibility. Could this knowledge have come from the second eruption of the Nephilim, which occurred after the flood? Tree of Knowledge. If we go further back, could one find a linkage between this esoteric knowledge and the Tree of Knowledge found in the Garden of Eden? We know that this was one tree whose fruit Adam and Eve were forbidden to eat or even touch. Genesis 2:17 and Genesis 3:3. Why was this tree so named? Few commentators have shed any light on its meaning. Many dismiss the account as mere symbolism without even telling us what the symbolism is supposed to represent. Others look upon the passage as poetry, conveniently forgetting poetry is often the truest history. It not only relates facts, but interprets them as well. Poetry has been described as history written from the inside rather than from the outside, and therefore incomparably truer. Or, in the words of British author Gasham Green, poetry is the photography of the invisible. Supposing we applied this principle to the Tree of Knowledge. Ants. Doggone it. I've had enough ant bites lately. Supposedly we apply this principle to the Tree of Knowledge. If it is a symbol, then obviously it must be a symbol of something. Or if poetry, then it must convey some inner truth. But why should one speculate and search for cryptic meanings when the truth may well be on the surface? Obviously, the Tree of Knowledge must have something to do with knowledge, or why should it be so named? It undoubtedly contained the key to certain divinely classified material that God did not want early man to possess. But somehow, and it could well be by means of the Nephilim, early man did come to possess that knowledge, at least part of it. This was knowledge that primitive man could never have discovered on his own. Indeed, it was knowledge beyond the capacity of modern man. Kelly Saygraves reminds us, with all our intelligences, we cannot figure out how pyramids were constructed. We asked again, could this intelligence have been transmitted by the sons of God? Egypt is not the only country that has pyramids. A whole network of them can be found around the planet, in Cambodia, Shenxi, China, Thailand, Mexico, Nazca, Yucatan, Alaska. I didn't know about the Alaska one. Gotta look that up. How does one account for such advanced scientific technology on such a universal scale and in such prehistoric times? We can't build it now. So how did they do it? Why does this not freak people out? Could the answer be man's longevity at that time? The average age span before the flood was close to 900 years. 13 times the proverbial 10. This, of course, provided exceptional opportunity for learning, research, experimentation, and the accumulation of knowledge. If only modern-day scientists could live that long, but longevity alone could never account for the specialized knowledge that our forefathers possessed. Their awesome expertise indicates a source outside of themselves. No other viable explanation can be offered except that mankind was pre-programmed from the depths of space. The Bible not only supplies the key to the source of this knowledge, but also to the way it was transmitted. Space beings called fallen angels. As we have seen, such extraterrestrials possess superior knowledge. This they transmitted to man in direct contradiction to God's wishes. Satan, the leader of the fallen angels, is himself a creature of rare brilliance and inimitable genius. The Latin translation of his name, Lucifer, from the Hebrew Hillel, comes from a root word meaning brilliance or magnificence. This is a trait he shares with his cohorts. He and they have access to classified divine information and are cognizant of hidden things. See Acts 16 and 17. Verse 16 and 17. According to Professor C.S. Dixon, the source of their knowledge is found in their superior created nature and in their vast experience as they lived through many thousands of years observing and collecting information. John L. Nevius, after surveying demon possession in China, documents the amazing knowledge revealed by the demon-possessed. Many persons, while demon-possessed, give evidence of knowledge which cannot be accounted for in ordinary ways. They often appear to know of the Lord Jesus as a divine person and show an aversion to and a fear of him. They sometimes converse in foreign languages of which in their normal states they are entirely ignorant. Betty and Barney Hill. Betty and Barney Hill of New Hampshire, while returning home from a vacation in Canada in 1961, spotted a flying saucer and pulled off the road to watch it land. The engine of their car went dead. Total X-Files episode there. But they have no recollection of what happened after that. I think there may be an X-File episode just like this. The next thing they remembered was being close to home, 60 miles south. After this bizarre experience, they suffered from nightmares, anxiety symptoms, and ulcers. They finally consulted a psychiatrist, the noted Benjamin Simon of Boston. By the use of hypnosis, he was able to induce from them, quite independently of each other, the story of those missing hours. Both told the same story. Taken aboard the flying saucer, they underwent physical examination by the humanoid occupants. Tape recordings were made of their story, given under hypnosis, and a book was published. Later, an NBC television movie was made of the event. Stanton T. Friedman, a nuclear physicist, studied these reports and was greatly impressed. But what finally convinced him was the map drawn in 1964 by Betty Hill of a star system unknown to science at the time. Betty claimed that she had been shown this map aboard the UFO and revealed the details of it under hypnosis. The astronomers who examined the map at that time dismissed it, but since 1964, new evidence has appeared on the subject. Star systems that were invisible in 1964 have now been discovered. And an amazing fact that has come to light, Dr. Friedman explains, using these new data, a computer came up with a map of the Zeta Reticuli system. Faint stars 220 trillion miles away, which astronomers agree matches Mrs. Hill's precisely. I mean, that's just weird. Weird, creepy, scary. How much longer is... Okay, we only got 2.5 pages. Giants and wickedness. Giants and wickedness is another distinction of the Nephilim. Sired by demonic beings, their character and activity certainly reveal the nature of the fallen ones. Many of the legends surrounding the crossbreeding between the natural and the supernatural depict subhuman behavior. To the one, the semi-gods of mythology, Zeus, the Roman Jupiter, Poseidon, Neptune, Eros, Cupid, Hermes, Mercury, were violent, wanton, lustful, and promiscuous beyond restraint. They constantly engaged in sex orgies and seduction, and produced the strangest of offspring. Emile Gavriluk tells of Zeus. He disregarded marriage laws and engaged in love affairs with members of both sexes. Zeus married Hera, his sister. One of the loves of Zeus was Europa. He seduced her by becoming a bull and carrying her away. Another was Leda, the daughter of Thestios, king of Aetolia, and the wife of Turnudarius, king of Sparta. But this did not stop Zeus. Athene was the daughter of Metis by Zeus. Metis tried to evade him. He seduced her. She warned him that if he did this again and the child was a male, the child would depose and conquer him. Zeus didn't like the sound of this and took no chances. He swallowed the child whole. Zeus's amorous victories illustrate the actions of uncontrolled spirit beings lusting after human flesh. This is only one example from Greek mythology of the evil associations between spirit entities from space and human beings from Earth. But it was not only the spirit beings who acted this way. They seem to have passed on the trait to their descendants. The Nephilim, in this respect, more than anything else, were close imitators of their fathers. They reflected the works of their demon ancestry. And just as there are degrees of goodness among the saints, so there are degrees of evil among the demons. Evidence of this is recorded in Matthew 12:43 through 45. It tells of the unclean spirit returning to occupy the house from which he has been displaced, and returns with 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. Irrespective of the degree of evil, all demons are regarded by God as vile and depraved. A recurring biblical adjective is unclean. Matthew 10:1, Mark 1:27, and Mark 3:11. These spirits are both morally and spiritually unclean, and the same distinctive applies to their progeny on earth. What is more, those who traffic with such beings frequently end up like them. Indeed, such is the degree of their degradation that the Lord abandons them to their own depravity. Romans 1:24 through 32 graphically states that God gave them up. The depths of their degradation and the infamy of their immoralities puts them on a level lower than animals. Abandoned by God to the consequences of their wickedness and deranged by demonic harassment, people have been driven to insane asylums and even to suicide. It is any wonder when incorrigible spirit beings and rebellious humans cooperated to pollute Earth, to seek genetic control and produce hybrids. They threatened the race itself and even tried to thwart the very plan of God, that God should intervene in a judgment. They even tried to thwart the very plan of God. Is it so surprising that God should intervene in a judgment terrible to behold? Giants in pride. The Nephilim were giants in pride also. Lord Acton claimed that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So does knowledge. With their superior intelligence and knowledge, the Nephilim soon succumbed to the sin that became the downfall of Lucifer. His followers also dreamed of being gods, desiring to control and rule the earth. Their advanced knowledge was the desired diet for their egoism. Such knowledge, wedded to an already arrogant nature, led to self-defecation. They craved divine honors and religious worship. This was the ambition of Lucifer, of the Nephilim, and of every fallen creature. They were propelled in all that they did by self-will, self-determination, self-glorification, and ultimately self-deification. Sounds kind of like a lot of people today. No wonder Josephus referred to the Nephilim as sons who were overbearing and disdainful of every virtue. Man's fascination with the occult and otherworld phenomena is amazingly significant today. At no other time has he been more conditioned to accept the possibility of extraterrestrial life. And here we are in 22. This is the 70s, 2022. They've already got on the news. It's real. They're saying it's real now. But before they're like, no, y'all all crazy tinfoil hat people. Now they have a whole committee in the government for it. Okay, they always had it. But squirrel. They always had this, investigation going on in the government, of course, but now they're publicly saying, yes, it's real, whereas before it was like, no, y'all crazy. Y'all don't see no UFOs. Yeah, y'all crazy. Having once escaped his Mother Earth, man now strains at his celestial tether, wondering what or who lies beyond the final frontier. Star Trek, that's what I think of. With this starward look, the stage could be set for the coming of the unwelcome guests from space. Hello, they know they're coming. The days of Noah are again here. Perhaps even now, agents from another realm are plotting the return of the Nephilim. That's why we got Space Force. Not that it would do anything. Watch Skinwalker Ranch and you will see it in action. You don't see a giant fallen angel or whatever, but you see things happen in all kind of weird ways. And if you watch David Pilatus on the Can-Am Missing Project YouTube channel, he also has a couple of movies on Prime and maybe on YouTube too. And he also does updates about what goes on at Skinwalker Ranch, along with his missing person stuff. People associated with Skinwalker Ranch tell David Pilatus his missing persons cases that he studies certain coordinating things about them. These things that they fall into certain categories. are related. It's very interesting that portals and UFOs and odd things are becoming more mainstream. Coming Great Deception, folks. All right, we'll be on chapter 9 next time. That squirrel's busy. I think he was listening.